Okay. There's this like really interesting type of bean in the ocean. And most people don't know about it. It's actually one of the most expensive coffees to get from. So like this bean, they serve it on the islands, this type of coffee. It's very juicy because it's in the ocean, but it actually has a saltiness to it. So picture your typical cup of coffee, but then picture extra salty. The acidity is really low because it really helps with like the bitterness and stuff, but it's a salty cup of coffee. So
is this the coffee that mermaids drink?
Probably, because now we know mermaids are real, so mermaids are drinking this. It's how they stay caffeinated, it's how they stay quick on their tails, so to speak, and drown sailors, I guess. The deep south, where I'm from, there is nothing more southern than South America, except maybe Antarctica, but not many people live there. So, this is actually where a lot of the coffee comes from, or where we get a lot of beans. Fun fact about beans in South America, people in South America for the most part, and I'm talking about beans like lentils and like kidney beans, we don't really eat beans actually. Like people that eat beans are mostly going to be found in Central America, Latinos that eat beans are mostly going to be found in Central America. Where I'm from, which is Bolivia, we don't actually like eat beans. We have a word for it, it's called frijoles, but we don't really eat it. As far as beans are concerned, that's what I'm gonna throw in for the deep south.
Yeah.
Other places. Okay. Fun fact, there's this like jungly part in somewhere around here. And there's this little animal, I think he's a marsupial. He eats coffee cherries and then he poops it and we make coffee out of that. Second most expensive coffee after the ones that we find in the ocean. Don't quote me on that. In many places, beans are everywhere, and they're in the form of coffee, they're in the form of frijoles, like I mentioned. There's also magic beans, which are found in many places and in no places. Actually, magic beans are found specifically in no places because they're magic. So if you ever stumble upon magic beans, you are in no place, and you should really take advantage of that bean. Okay, Rose. Rare. So rare, very similar to the way that we cook our meats. There's the rare type of coffee. You can either, when someone's talking about rare beans, they're either referring to the magic beans like we mentioned, the ocean beans like we mentioned, or they're referring to beans that have been roasted lighter than the light roast. So they're called a rare. Medium. That's when the bean has like a slightish tint to it, not quite light yet, but it's like because coffee beans are kind of green, so you're somewhere in between the green and the brown. There's medium well. These are all the same. We just the bean community just likes to make things complicated. So just anytime you go somewhere and they're offering these to you, it's the same bean. You're fine. Temperature. There's such thing as too hot. Now we're just going to specifically talk about coffee beans. There's such thing as too hot and still too hot. These may appear to be the same exact description, but they're actually very different. Too hot means that it just was brewed. Like if it's touching your tongue, and it's like burning and searing you, it was literally just brewed. Still too hot means it was brewed. You poured it in your cup and you're trying to take a sip, so there was a little bit of aeration while they like poured it into your cup and while you brought it to your table, but it's still too hot to drink. It's not safe. Do not drink. Coffee temperature, that's just like what we like to refer to as drinking temperature. That's another, like AKA drinking temperature, which is somewhere between the made up number of 97 degrees and 42 degrees. If you like iced coffee, it's probably going to be closer to 42 degrees. There's warm, lukewarm. This is only applicable if your name is Luke, actually. Warm is applicable to everyone else. So warm is like much more palatable. There's only concern if you're drinking iced coffee and it's warm. That's where it's concerning. And Luke doesn't care what temperature his coffee is, so he's fine with lukewarm. Temperature continued. Okay, cold. Thank you. Exactly. There's only Lukes everywhere just have very particular feelings about the way that their coffee tastes. So cold, that's when your coffee's been sitting on your desk and you forgot about it and came back to it, and it's been sitting too long and it's cold. We've already been really cold, but on purpose. That is your classic like cold brew, iced coffee, iced espresso, which is espresso over ice, which is just the same thing that I said. But it's on purpose, so it's gonna taste better, which is different than accidentally forgetting about your coffee, taking a sip, having it be cold, and it tastes nasty.
And Valeria, do you know what is colder than being cold? What's cooler than being cold?
Cooler than being cold?
Ice
Yes, and that is actually the optimal temperature for beans to be at. Brewing. Okay, this is, the best way, the second. Hi, this is the opportunity that I have to roast you if you have a terrible coffee making process at your house. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to call out people in the audience that buy Aldi coffee and make pour-overs out of them. Which is gonna be like, there's an invisible bullet point that says the wrong way, and that's what is the wrong way.
Okay, that's too
The best way is to buy whole bean. If you're a little bit, if you're interested and kind of picky about flavor notes, you want to buy single origin, but there are really good blends. You just have to try them out. Buy whole bean, grind them fresh. Make sure you're using good water, and I'll explain that later if I get a chance. Good water, which is different than Luke water or ocean water. So that is the best way. The second best way is to you pick and choose. So either you're buying it pre-ground, but you're still making sure the other factors are precise or the right way, or you buy it whole bean and you grind it, but you're just doing like a bad method, which some people use. Like they'll grind their coffee and they put it in the little Keurig cups, and they brew their coffee that way. Other ways to prepare coffee, fun ways that I like to prepare coffee. There's a thing called a coffee sock. You can brew your coffee that way. You can brew it the way that I think it's called Vietnamese coffee. That's a different process, which I'm still learning about. You can do it as a pour over. You can do it as a French press. You can do it as an AeroPress. If you have an espresso machine, you can do it through an espresso machine. Cold brew is another way to brew coffee, but that's another thing. The wrong way to drink coffee is through your nose. Never do that. Everyone already knows not to do that, so that's a helpful way to remember. Never through your nose. Everybody knows that's the wrong way to drink coffee. 4 rules to drinking coffee are: number 1, number 2, number 3. Are there any pull-ups? Rule number 1: make sure it's the coffee temperature and not still too hot or too hot. Number 2 rule to drinking coffee: don't chug it.
Why not?
Because then you're overly caffeinated in a short amount of time, and then you have to like control yourself during small group.
Oh yeah.
While you're trying to lead a Bible study. Number 3 rule to drinking coffee: don't add sugar and cream. Oh, she said it. Whoa. Number 4: if you are a cream and sugar person, always take 1 sip with the coffee as is, just so you can try out the flavor notes, and then you can add your cream and sugar. Flavor notes of the coffee. Each coffee has an identity, a character, a personality, if you will. And you can really, once you get to know the coffee by the first sip, that's when you can add any like sweetness or creamer that you prefer.
So even Aldi's coffees has a
Yeah, it's called burnt. Yeah. No offense to Mike.
Yeah.
Thank you for allowing me to talk your head off about beans and their juice. Any actual questions about coffee, I'm willing to answer.
Is it kind of single origin if I only buy it from Aldi?
That is not single origin.